welcome to the end of democracy. We're here to overthrow it completely. We didn't get all the way there on January 6th, but we will endeavor to get rid of it.
Obvious point to make about Donald Trump is take him literally and seriously. He means what he says. Now he is telling us what he intends to do. And people who try to wish it away, brush it away, are living in an alternative reality. He will do everything he can to become an absolute authoritarian leader if given the opportunity to do so.
Autocracies do not happen overnight. Hi, my name is Suri Crowe, and you're watching the MeidasTouch Network. You don't wake up one morning and find out, oh, my country's been taken over by an authoritarian dictator. An unsuspicious electorate either willingly hands over the reins of power or is too checked out to believe that America could turn into the next Russia, Turkey, or North Korea. And we are at a serious tipping point right now, my friends, right here in the United States, if we don't wake up.
One of the things that my research shows is from the Germans in the early 1930s to the Chileans in the early 1970s who said, we're not going to have a coup, as all the countries around them had a coup. People are always in denial. They're always unprepared. And very often they think that it can't happen here. And nowadays, this is much more difficult to comprehend because today's autocrats tell you what they're going to do. Donald Trump, he was president, and he's saying very openly that he admires dictators, Putin, Xi Jinping, even the leader of North Korea. Mm-hmm. And authoritarianism is a system where government is arranged so that the leader has total control and can commit crimes and not pay any consequences. And that's what he's saying that he wants for the U.S. And it's been a struggle to wake people up.
Doesn't that sound familiar? The Supreme Court justices, the corrupted ones on the right extremist bench, and people like Judge Aileen Cannon are literally paving the way for Donald Trump to get away with his crimes. And the GOP, which is now officially the party of Trump, make no mistake about that, is going right along with it. Uber-conservative former Congresswoman Liz Cheney is one of the few, a handful of Republicans who has been ringing the five-alarm bell about the danger Trump presents for some time.
He's told us what he will do. It's very easy to see the steps that he will take. People who say, well, if he's elected, it's not that dangerous because we have all of these checks and balances, don't fully understand the extent to which the Republicans in Congress today have been co-opted. One of the things that we see happening today is a sort of a sleepwalking into dictatorship.
Yeah, Americans cannot say that we have not been warned. Trump tells us exactly what he plans to do all of the time.
And within moments of my inauguration, we will begin the largest deportation operation in American history. He's the Prime Minister of Hungary. He's a very great leader, very strong man. Some people don't like him because he's too strong. It's nice to have a strong man running your country.
And you might think, you say those things, that rhetoric is going to stop voters in their tracks. It'll never happen here, that it would be political kryptonite to run like that in America. Not necessarily. These were voters in South Carolina from Saturday.
I believe that sometimes history calls for strong men to be strong leaders at key times in our history, and I think he would be perfect for the job.
Amen. That was real. America needs a strong man, and she was saying amen.
That woman saying amen in deference to her man is exactly what Christian nationalism teaches. The Charlie Kirks of the world, the Franklin Grahams of the world, that white Christian men set the tone and the pace, that they are the superior species or gender, and the women who they consider to be lesser are to applaud and support them. And if that isn't obvious by the Handmaid's Tale policies that Republicans are forcing on us women right now, just wait. I assure you it will only get worse if they are allowed to maintain and gain power.
Those are his supporters actively saying out loud that they want a strong man. How do you fix the sickness in a culture that wants to be something other than a democracy where every vote counts?
It's very difficult to, Nicole. I think part of what's happening now is that people see him as a kind of a father figure, but also a personality that could take care of them. Okay. And so for that woman who was in the clip that said amen, that's also the religious piece of this, because basically they think of him as kind of a demigod. If you remember back during the campaign in 2016 and then what happened afterwards, people called him King Cyrus. They likened him to the Bible, all of this iconography with Jesus behind him on his shoulders. He's not just a figure of popularity like you'd follow a movie star or something. He's much more than that to them. And so they are willing to follow him and they are willing to give their lives over to him.
That is how authoritarianism works, my friends. The people who give their autonomy away have been conditioned over and over again to believe that the world is a very bad and dangerous place. Propagandists like Fox and other extremist outlets just boost those lies.
Well, major cities across the U.S. getting hit hard by the crime surge, especially where I live in D.C. Fox and Friends co-host Lawrence Jones had a chance to talk with some people in Memphis, St. Louis, and D.C. about what they're seeing.
Hey, good morning, family.
Yeah, you're on the road all week.
We're looking at America destroyed right now. We even have the criminals coming across the border, going against the cops right here. You got...
Okay, that is a massive lie. Violent crime in America is down substantially in cities big and small. The national murder rate is falling. It's down by 6% in 2022 and dropped 13% in 2023. And that is not surprising when the economy is doing well and people are able to afford more and wages come up. There tends to be less crime because there isn't a need to go out and behave more. Not that I'm saying it's excusable, but that's just something that happens societally. When people are happier and feeling more secure, crime rates drop. But that's not what Trump and MAGA leaders are saying, and their lies are quite intentional. In a fascinating article for Psychology Today titled, "Why Do Some Poor People Vote Against Their Own Interests?" author Nigel Barber writes this: conservative leaders must convince followers of two things. First, the world that we live in is full of threats. Second, supporting that leader is the only way of protecting themselves from the threats. If the first goal is achieved, the second is relatively simple. After all, if some politician is the only one who emphasized a specific threat, then it makes sense that they would be the only one with an answer. Do you see how this works? This is literally the playbook that Donald Trump acts out every single day. And by indoctrinating followers with everything is terrible and only I can fix it, stay tuned right here to the terror channel or the terror rally that he's at, they prevent people from hearing the truth.
What do you think after you talk to these folks?
We have to come back to the word conditioning, conditioning, conditioning. It's not a matter of what Donald Trump has even done, right? He has led people to not believe in the press. He has led people not to believe in our justice system, our intelligence agencies. He has led people to not believe in our
military leaders.
Our military leaders. That's what he's done the last 9 years. It's about what he's actively doing.
And what
it's
is
about
that?
what he is actively saying. When Donald Trump, every single one of his rallies finishes by saying 2024 is our final battle.
And the twisted irony is that crime surged under Donald Trump's presidency. Murder shot up by 30%. Rape, assault, and robbery were up by 5%. 2019 and 2020 were two of the most violent years we've had on record. And of course, Donald Trump himself is facing 4 criminal indictments amongst his pile of civil lawsuits. And yet his followers believe that he is the way, the truth, and some messianic figure. And they believe him and him alone over the facts. And by manipulating populations into believing that everyone is worse than he is, they are giving up their power. It's exactly how Vladimir Putin and other authoritarians maintain control and power. Listen to this clip from the London Times regarding the oppression of the people in Russia.
There are millions of Russians who simply wouldn't have been particularly concerned about Navalny, maybe didn't even know that he was being buried that day. And that will always be, I think, the biggest obstacle to substantial change inside Russia. I think given the kind of learned helplessness that so many Russians have, they just don't see political answers to their future. All politicians are the same. There's no point voting for anyone. You know, everyone who's in power is always going to kind of screw us over. And as a result, that narrative plays perfectly into Putin's hands because he can say, well, yeah, everyone's going to be bad. I'm the least bad.
So you hear that. That's abject hopelessness. We can't seem to get out of it. And we are already sliding into an autocracy. I'm not trying to be this isn't hyperbole, but if you look at what the corporations are doing, they're fleecing and bilking millions of Americans out of billions of dollars. While inflation rates have been consistently dropping over the past couple of years, these corporations continue to raise prices while pocketing billions of dollars in record profits, yet blaming the current administration. This is how an oligarchy works. Then the autocracy class, in this case that would be the GOP, enforces laws or breaks them to make sure that the oligarchy gets the huge tax breaks and the profits. Meanwhile, the working class bears the burden of taxes, and that in turn oppresses people further into poverty and further into desperation and hopelessness. And this is what Putin was so afraid of with Alexei Navalny, because Navalny's organization was exposing the overt corruption and the theft from the Russian people that Putin and his cronies have enriched themselves on for decades. And that corruption grows when the electorate is checked out or believes that the institutions and the people running them will hold.
Call them yellow anymore, flashing red lights. And they say, well, I can sleep at night because so far the courts have held. Is that a realistic read, and is that sustainable?
No, it's really not. And, one of the things that I find interesting, I'd be interested to hear Ruth on this, is that autocracy is contagious. And part of what we're facing now is not just about Donald Trump. We've got lots of little Donald Trumps. We've got governors of states who believe that they can control the border with another country. We've got governors who are hell-bent on deciding what children can learn and banning books. We've got governors engaged in deep corruption and statewide leaders engaged in deep corruption who won't leave office. We've got legislatures who strip Democratic governors of power because they want to hold on to power. So part of what has happened is that Trump's the culture he has created is catching. And what it has done is it has exposed all of the weaknesses that we left in our democratic institution. So back to the Supreme Court. Donald Trump didn't give us a Supreme Court that has no ethics code. That's something that we allowed all of these years, despite the fact that we've raised these issues. We had Scalia and the duck hunting and so forth. And the culture, the environment that Donald Trump has created has allowed people to decide to run the tables. And so because they have seen him break through the barriers of norms and ethics, others are doing the same thing too. And they're not getting the pushback, just as he didn't get the pushback. So I think one of the things that's deeply concerning is that if we were just talking about Donald Trump, that would be concerning enough. Mm-hmm. But we're not. We're talking about a population that has been very quickly educated. That's why I call Trump an accelerant. Mm-hmm. He didn't create the conditions, but he has accelerated them. And so we have a population now that basically doesn't know what ethics are in the public life, and is willing to blow past norms. And we see it happening at the state level. And the last thing I'd say on that, Nicole, is that I too talk to people from countries in Eastern Europe and so forth who have experienced the slide into autocracy. But I also talk with older people from the South. What Black people lived under was autocracy and authoritarianism. We do have homegrown experience with this. And I think we need to begin to mine that experience. It's one of the reasons why in this country, racism is the gateway drug to the kind of power grab and authoritarianism that we're seeing with Donald Trump, and why when we don't cut off the racism, we end up with all the rest.
And who is running an openly white supremacist campaign? Donald Trump. The biggest danger here is apathy. And even though this election is of tantamount importance, and I'm always saying this, so is every single election. The school boards that make decisions about what books your child gets to read, the state houses that decide whether or not to arm school teachers with guns, and all the way up to the federal government where women's rights have been stripped away. This erosion didn't happen in one election. It started years before we ever saw Donald Trump descending on that escalator. And even people who thought Trump would fade away after he lost in 2020, nope. He's back and bigger and more popular with his base than ever. He is like the nightmare that will not go away.
To those who feel that there is not a glimmer of hope on the horizon, what do you say, Mark Elias?
We can't give up. We can't give up hope. The dictators, the authoritarians, one of the ways they rule is by making their populations feel hopeless. They want them to feel like there is no other way. And Donald Trump, he is a seller of hopelessness. You know, he wants there to be, if Barack Obama wanted there to be hope and change, Donald Trump wants there to be static despair.
Indeed, he is. That's why he's always spewing this American carnage of doom and destruction. Just a depressing message all the way around. But Trump only has this power if we, the people, allow him to take it. So like I say on every episode, I know that we can do this, but the time is now. Once an authoritarian is in power, it is really, really hard to remove them. It took World War II to remove Hitler from his reign of terror. So now is the time you got to wake up your cousin who hasn't voted since Obama in 2008. Believe me, I have friends who fall into this category, and get people off the couch. I know that things aren't perfect right now. There is chaos and turmoil going on in the Middle East. I know a lot of us are very unhappy with that, but believe me, things will be a billion times worse if Donald Trump and his cronies gain power in November. We cannot let that happen. And this is how we save our freedoms and save them to live another day where we can continue to make changes in a functioning and healthy democracy that allows for disagreement and dissent. And hey, I don't like the way you're doing this. That's the way we want it to work here in the United States of America. My name is Suri Crowe, and you are watching the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I do hope to see you back here very, very soon. Peace.
Real quick, Meta just changed their algorithm to suppress political content. Please follow our Instagram @MeidasTouch right now as we head towards 400,000 followers so you don't miss a beat.